The Situation Room is a film that talks about putting people in a situation to see how they do. The problem is that the Situation Room is something that a person accepts to participate in. We have these escape rooms around the community that allow us the right to participate in a play, a drama, a way of getting in and out of something or trying to find the exit of a special place. It's almost like walking through a haunted house during the Halloween time period. The truth is that holiday has been destroyed by a darkness that is not right. Long ago, we celebrated the harvest of the earth. We enjoyed the environment and we valued the food that Mother Earth provided to us. In life, we have moments of time to talk about the truth of the world in which we live. And there are plenty of people who like to put together lie and inappropriateness that is their version of truth. Long ago, I had to be put in a situation room. The situation room lasted roughly 2 years. I went through a lot of testing, I went through a lot of analysis, I went through a lot of different things to find my way through. When I found my way through, everything in life literally began to finally work for me. Everything began to click, but more importantly, my physical being started to function correctly. Today, because of several nurses in an establishment who decided to pretend to give me a shot that I'm to have every month for the rest of my life, I literally have now physical defects occurring within me. The vileness of people who think they have rights to just flip a switch on someone is not exactly what goes on within a person's cellular health. It is an immoral idea for someone who is not a physically trained physician in an area of specialty to render an opinion in any legal documentation of a medical file that belongs to a human being. Have I made myself clear that while my siblings might have opinions about what I should and shouldn't eat, they don't know my cellular health to know what I know about what I can and cannot eat and what will and won't cause me a problem and what does and doesn't affect me. I have several allergies, but different versions of those things, different varieties of chocolate, for example, affect me differently. I am so well studied in that because, like most children, I wanted to have what other children would eat, so I didn't get made fun of in school. But I learned the hard way that it's really not good for me to eat things I'm allergic to. The same with gluten. Gluten causes a problem with me. There's certain grains I can eat and certain grains that I have a high allergy to. It's not an offense to communicate to someone at a food bank that I'm sorry I can't receive that food from you and I apologize for the inconvenience, but I am allergic to that food. It's amazing how many people who don't have that allergies are very misunderstanding or lack understanding of that compassion point. If they don't have one allergy in their entire being, what a blessing the Lord has given them. But if you're like me and have multiple allergies, you have to be thoughtful, you have to be strategic, and you have to be careful in what you put into your being. Since coming to Illinois, I have become a little bit ill. The illness is not the virus. The illness is an intestinal problem because someone illegally and immorally did things to my intestine. We also have children from foreign lands who have stayed beyond their course of study and are literally working illegally in restaurants who want to take over a life by feeding someone bad food just to piss on them because they're getting free food. But it's immoral to give a person free food if it's tainted. The other day I went to a Portillo's restaurant late in the evening. I requested, is it possible that they had any food that was about to expire or some prepared meals that they were no longer needing because the person either didn't show up to pick them up or that they just put things on hand, like many restaurants that keep food on hand do. The young man, who was a black gentleman, said, "We don't have anything right now," but what was amazing was how quickly his employees who had set food aside for themselves actually gave up their food for this humble old man. It was a very moving experience. It was simply a hot, spicy bratwurst of sorts, which was really hard for me to digest, but because I was hungry, I literally ate it. It was a practical miracle I didn't have a problem after eating it. When I visited another place, what ended up happening was the female matronly woman who was the manager sort of looked around to her employees that were younger. The employees came up with food. Well, they came up with fresh French fries. They brought me burgers that literally I think had been in the trash. They were as hard as a hockey puck. And even the geese that I fed the next morning with them could barely choke them down. It's not true. They loved them, but I could not eat them. You see, there is an illness in the land when people are in poverty. They don't always think about how close they are to truly having nothing in life. But they do begrudge people who need help. They don't think about how to help someone is really quite true. They don't think, if this were me, how would I feel? There is a lack of compassion in the land, and there is a lack of willingness to speak to people, not at all. There are plenty of women I have discovered in the last several weeks of being in a different part of the Champaign, Illinois area who constantly think that they have the right to manage or monkey my life. They're constantly sending lying mental health people who pretend to be homeless to talk at me, to try to ask my name, to try to solicit where I'm living, to try to solicit if I have a shelter, and all these things that is not their fundamental right under any law in this land to request information on my private life. It is poor social skills that highlight that they are not legitimate people. It is a vileness in them that they think they're going to monstrously develop records without the consent of the law-abiding citizen who's simply doing his life within the parameters, the situations, and the circumstances of his life that those people know absolutely nothing about. It doesn't take much for a person who has posture in the community, someone who drives a Salvation Army truck or a canteen truck, to lie about someone. They get away with it because they're seen as an expert in the field. I highly doubt that. In my case, over a month ago, I gave 3 items to a person who drove the canteen and said, if you could help me with these 3 items, I'd really appreciate it. The items were quite simple, and they have a Salvation Army store that really could have easily produced those 3 items in a matter of probably a day or 2. But now, a month later, I'm still sitting here and no response from that man, and he was upset that he got the finger from me one time. First and foremost, it seems to be a way to get around in this community that men actually like me, who are sort of on the indigent side, actually swear at each other to say hello. It's somewhat comical for a person who's professional like myself. We would never do this in the community that I came from, but that's not the point. The point is, when you're in a different educational realm, when you're in a different environment socially, you take on and adapt to what is expected. It allows you to not stick out like a sore thumb quite as much. But here's the difference between an impoverished person, an impoverished mind, and a truly homeless individual who's gotten there not by his own accord. That an impoverished person may not carry any pack at all. They will walk up and solicit any stranger for any pocket change, any dollars, anything at all, without shame and without abandon, and they create a life like that. Many of the panhandlers that I have met and had social time with and been polite with, out of regard for their right to their lives, literally have told me that they have been panhandling for 3+ years. There are women who professionally panhandle too, and they are the vilest of the vile in what they do in the night. What I mean is how they steal from people, how they pilfer from people, and how they immorally put their hands in people's pockets while they sleep. But at the same time, there are some gentlemen who literally just don't have another way out. If a person has experienced cybercrime, if they've experienced identity theft, it is very difficult for someone to move forward, especially if the people in control of these shelters and in control of these help mechanisms are stealing their intellectual property to pontificate their lives, to produce better results for their companies, but to never give credit to the one that it's due to. In life, we have moments of time to tell people how we feel, and I can tell plenty of people to screw off, but that doesn't mean that they will actually leave me alone. I can make a comedy of these audio files. I can make a joke out of my own life, but don't you dare make a comment about me in any report that you feel you have some lawful right to do based on your job paid by the city in which I might be passing through. Your job is to do things honestly and integrity, and if you are not being honest about who you are and what you're doing with that information, then you have violated God's principles in this world. Thou shalt not steal is a very important principle. It really means thou shalt not steal away from a person's life. Thou shalt not steal information. Thou shalt not steal property. Thou shalt not steal money. Thou shalt not. And I had plenty of times when money was taken from my pockets, put back in. When someone asked me if I had something and I said no because I didn't want to give it up. I don't have to give up everything to every black child that asks me for a lighter. But at the same time, a lighter went missing from my pants the other day. Who the fuck gave them the right to pull a bag that might have had a string in my pocket, out of my pocket, take a lighter, and then put things back in? That is immoral. It is illegal, and it's still theft. Petty crime is still petty crime. And the people that start there work their way up to larger and larger things for the thrill of it, for the rush of it, and for the power of it. It is immoral. It is illegal, and frankly, we are not tending things correctly. In life, we have to decide what kind of critters we're going to live with. And when foreigners come to our land to produce landscaping, they don't know one damn thing about the earth. They don't know one thing about our soils. They don't know one thing about our grasses. They most certainly don't know one thing about our wood chips. And they bring with them from foreign lands the wood chips and the wood of different forests that have in them insects and critters that we are not accustomed to dealing with. The Champaign, Illinois area has a major mite problem. The reason is because property owners are not only not tending their grasses and their fields and their bushes around actual establishments where people go to shop, but those little things are so small they can climb up on any purse set on the floor, any individual's clothing, and they literally can do a lot of damage if they get into a body. The truth is we must tend our property if we're going to own it, and if you're too lazy to tend it, then don't own it. In life, we have moments of time to prove who we are in the house of God, and your relationship to other people is important, but when you have employees that lie, steal, and cheat people out of opportunity, they should be fired immediately. Because what they're really doing is they're speaking on your behalf as if you don't care about human life, and all you care about is money and what food you can throw away. In life, we have moments of time to tell true story, and that's in essence what my podcasts and audiocasts do. I don't always produce a picture of myself because I don't have to look at myself every single day. I'm not a television reporter, I don't have to clean up for you, and I don't have to do it for me, but I do it quite regularly. I take the time when I'm in a private moment to handle my own health and hygiene. I don't have to produce any results for anyone other than myself. And in life, other adults do the exact same thing. They choose their life, is what people say. I have one dear friend who's literally got a skill set like mine, but is really unique, who literally can stand next to you and tell you just about everything there is to know about your life, and even down to who you should and shouldn't be with. She's phenomenally gifted by Lord Jesus, but the truth is, she's always very positive and uplifting, telling me that I can get out of these situations. And while I would love to believe that, what I know is that legal documentation that has been tainted, ruined by law enforcement, by siblings, by illegal people committing identity theft and cybercrime, it's almost impossible to do so. Everything I put together for my plan of developing myself a way out of my difficulties has been stolen and pilfered by the shelter people, by other people who just thought they'd take my documentation, put it on their phone, and give it out willy-nilly through their channels. A woman who worked at Qdoba took a photograph of something I left with her the other day, and I thought, I don't need her speaking on my behalf to her boss. She could barely give me the time of day. Why the hell would I let her speak on behalf of my company as if she knows what to say to that man? In life, we have moments of time to recognize our boundaries, and only a few times have I seen an employee, a female or a male, do the right thing in front of their owners. But what I mean is that if someone comes in and says, I would like the contact information of the owner, it means that the conversation is not at your pay grade. This lie that you can't give that out is foolishness. Don't own a business if you're not willing to be public with who you are. What it implies is that you're doing something illegal and immoral. And if that's the case, then you do not deserve to have a business in our land. People in small businesses are suffering because of the pandemic, but national chains are as well. I've got two schools of thought right in front of me today. One puts out a tent that allows people to come and hang out together. The other refuses to do so because they feel their national company is large enough to endure until it's time. Is it laziness? I don't know. Do they both do the same amount of business? Probably. Why? Because of the quality of the food that's available at one over the other. In life, we have moments of time to tell people how we feel, But it's interesting that the one company that doesn't put out a tent is actually helping with our program, whereas the one that does won't give us one morsel of food for one person. We have a real problem in the land that people feel that food is an entitlement. It's actually a right underneath Maslow's law of hierarchy, and that there are things that we must have to live and to survive. It is a right to life, to be able to have water that is clean and fresh, and we're not minding our streams. And people are coming here illegally and immorally and maliciously attacking our land, thinking that they can take over and they can do things. We have plenty of people here who are dividing our nation in their thoughts. I produced something earlier today that got a lot of play on Twitter. It was kind of exciting to have that conversation. But it was amazing the number of people who made comments that made absolutely no sense to me at all. They used all sorts of acronyms that I didn't know at all. And then some of them even went out of their way to insult me. And I wasn't even sure if it was exactly an insult because of how poorly it was written. If you don't know how to have a conversation, then maybe you shouldn't be online. But in truth, we have moments of time to prove who we are in the house of God. And every human being that loves you like that deserves the conversation in the time of day. In life, when a person says, I've had enough of you, it's one thing. It's another thing if they every so often agree to contact and connect with you, and then someone outside of that relationship decides to cut you out of it, like an engineering person at one of these social media companies, or someone in a immoral act of saying, we are not going to allow this relationship to keep you isolated so you never succeed. Those people will go to hell. They are violating the Lord God's highest principle, which says, I am the Lord your God, and you will have none before me. When you play God in someone's life, you destroy your own. You literally destroy your own life. There are moments of time to do the right thing, and what I'm talking about, people, is are you doing the right thing for your life alone? Your life alone is the encompassment of you, your significant other, your children if you have any, those you volunteer with, and those you serve with. Beyond that is peripheral, that is not a part of your life. And if someone has told you to leave them alone, there's several reasons. 1, for your personal safety. 2, for their personal safety. And 3, just because they've decided that whatever you feel for their life is not a match to what they want to have going on in their life. In life, we have moments of time to prove we are in the house of God, and thou shalt not steal is a very major rule in the 10 Commandments. And yet there is a mother, or there's a brother, or there's a sister who think they have the right to steal property, give it to their child, let them wear it, let them get makeup all over it, or whatever the hell it is, and sweat all over it, and then replace it, put it back as if it didn't belong the way that it should have been, crystal clean. I had a bunch of hats that I gave brand new, all with tags on them, to loving siblings who were going through cancer. They never actually bothered to utilize the hats. This was my mother as well. They never bothered to use them, never bothered to wear them, but they still had the tags on them, and I was gifted them back by the person who gave them to me. So I chose a different plan for them. But what I found was that someone illegally and immorally got into my apartment, took the hats, wore them, and put them back. I was beyond offended. In life, we have moments of time to tell the truth about our lives. And if you're a liar, if you're a thief, if you're a conundrum of sorts, that is between you and the Lord. It is not your right to pilfer someone's property, to play with it, to break it, to destroy it, to shred it, to take it away if it was not yours in the first place. Thanks for listening.